All right, this next video comes to us from another extraordinary content creator, this being Dustaroo, who's a homie that is aware and appreciates our presence. Very, very kind individual that I am happy to have a parasocial relationship with, as is the networking atmosphere that exists in the content creation space. Very, very wonderful content creator, makes very, very wonderful videos. So now, more than ever, make sure you hit that link that just showed up in the Twitch chat above my head. If you're on YouTube, this will be down in the description below. This video they're doing today is part of their great rework series, where they do a lot of theory crafting about how they would change certain killers to be better versions of themselves, and often target killers that either stale or just problematic or just kind of don't work, or try to make them more lore accurate. Pig is obviously a character that, as long as a tale as old as time, has been a fairly weak killer. Still bottom 5, bottom 3 in the game. Just not a wonderful perk, or not a wonderful perk, just still not a wonderful killer. Her hats, I feel like, are in a perfect place, which is really, really good and really, really awesome. But the other half of her kit leaves a lot to be desired. So I'm interested to see how, if Dustaroo agrees with that take that I have about Pig, and how they would go about changing it. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started.
I'm Dustaroo, and I want to talk to you about
that's good.
The Pig.
A Pigu.
Dead by Daylight's greatest punching bag. New killer added to the game? That's a nerf. New game mechanic? Well, that's a nerf too. Well, this joke has been beaten to death harder than poor Freddy has. There's actually a lot of truth behind the Pig always being nerfed, as it feels like out of most of the killers to exist in the roster, she usually gets the short end of the stick. The Pig was introduced into Dead by Daylight all the way back on January 23rd, 2018, in Dead by Daylight's 7th chapter. Fun fact, that's the chapter before I actually got fully involved with the game. I played a little bit when Freddy launched, and Freddy made me quit the game, because his old power caused new survivors to never have fun, but we're talking about the Pig right now. The Pig was the first killer to introduce the side objective mechanic, that being an object that is physically...
I'm gonna say this, and this is going to be probably a hot take, and I understand it is. I like more, like, the way that Xenomorph works with, like, their side objective, like the turrets. The turrets are a way, and something you honestly should be doing for consistencies, is putting up the turrets to slow down the Xenomorph, extend your chases, possibly knock them out of their power. It is something that aids you against the killer, but is not something that, like, you are forced to do, like Pig hats, like Sadako's tapes. Like, I don't like that design. I'm not even saying from, like, a health of the game perspective. I'm not talking about, like, nerf this, buff that. I'm just saying that me personally, as a person playing a video game, and just my own personal preferences, I hate having to do something like that. It kind of defeats the kind of like even the definition of, like, a side objective. Is it really a side objective if you're forced to do it? No. So I kind of wish there were less of this design. I think a Pinhead is another great example. Pinhead, someone has to do the box, but, like, not all 4 people in the match have to do the box. So there is a side objective, but it's something that you can juggle between your teammates, and it's not necessarily that you have to be the one doing it. Whereas, like, Sadako and Pig, you have to. Like, unless the Pig's just really bad, doesn't have everybody, like, you're not going to be having all 4 members of having all 4 members of the team having to do it. It's like, anyways.
In the map that forces or pushes survivors to interact with it in a form of match slowdown. She introduced jigsaw boxes,
That's
one of my
personal
most
taste,
favorite
I'm not
and most
asking for
hated
changes based on it. It's
mechanics
just
ever
personal taste.
introduced into the game. As this was a mechanic from early in the game's lifespan, let's just say it was far from well designed. To get a bear trap off your head, you have to search a jigsaw box. Sure, after a gen is finished, you have 150 seconds before you die, so you better focus on those boxes. Alright, you're in solo queue and can't communicate with your team to not finish that gen because you're in a bad spot. Okay. You search 3 boxes and none of them are what you needed, and the last 2 are across the map, right where the Pig is hooking and chasing people. Oh. The Pig is following you crouched, so you can't get the trap off your head.
so annoying.
And you just die or get hooked while still having the trap on. Yeah, that's fun. I'm very happy to play against the Pig. My big issue with the bear traps is you can get majorly unlucky and have to search all 4 boxes to get your trap off, which could be across the map or being guarded by our Thunder Thighs possessing pig. The traps were
Don't be rude
purely
to her.
RNG at the
That's
start, which
Amanda.
felt like
That's
the
Amanda Young.
Haddonfield equivalent of game
That was
mechanics,
hurtful.
both boring and unfun for both sides at different times. It's quite the achievement to have a mechanic so poorly thought out. We did recently get a very nice change to have boxes always count towards progress in getting your bear trap off your head. So much that you will never have to search all 5 boxes, the maximum being 4. With a bit of randomness thrown in, you could get it off for 2 or maybe 3. But it's one of the big issues I have with the mechanic. It's not that strong when being played normally, but still heavily exploitable from my experience.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, if the rest of her kit was strong as well, the hats not being that crazy good doesn't matter. I think the problem lies in the fact that she doesn't have a complete kit that's all good. So you notice the hats aren't doing as much, and I don't think the hats are bad. I think it's just because the rest of her kit's bad, you notice it more, it sticks out more. Should the scream thing be removed? I think so. They should buff the other half of her kit first. I think it should come at the same time. But yeah, I think the scream to reset the progress thing is kind of silly and it's very cheesy. So I agree.
Majorly prone to what we call in the most professional of senses, major dog shit. Traps elicit the same feeling as stepping on poo when you decided you wanted to feel the grass between your toes.
Ew. Ooh.
But the thing is, without all the crouching next to boxes, being able to force head pops and downs, even at the cost of the game, this mechanic could be good, maybe even great. I love how distinctly
Pig is actually
unique
OP,
it is
you just
from
don't
most
need how to
powers
use
we've
her.
seen up to this point.
Pig has a high kill rate, if you didn't know. Anytime behaviors release stats, kill has a high kill rate because, like, stealth characters and built-in slowdown characters have high kill rates. That's just a thing. Because if you're still learning the game, period, you're still kind of figuring out how a terror radius works and what a terror radius even is. So somebody that can just fluctuate their terror radius at will is confusing and weird. If you're still trying to figure out how to win the game normally, like doing the normal objective, which is the gens, having a second objective, which is the hats, it's a little weird. It's a little confusing. So, like, yeah, they're pub stompers for beginner players. That doesn't mean they're OP. That doesn't mean they're OP at all. It's just that, like, until you learn what a terror radius is, until you learn, you know, how to do gens and, you know, handle side objectives that certain killers have as part of their base kits, then it's going to be a little confusing for new players to handle. Wraith, the Wraith's another perfect example.
Probably for a good reason. So how do we keep the process of bear traps, but removing the exploitable frustration of it? How do we make it more consistent in its main purpose? Slowdown. So this is my idea.
So we're mostly focusing on the hats here? I thought the hats were in a good spot. That's interesting. I thought the hats were mostly in a good spot. It's interesting that Dustaroo still hates them.
Jigsaw's baptism. The survivors will start the trial with reverse bear traps on their heads. Okay. There are 4 jigsaw boxes scattered around the trial.
Very true. Hey,
bear
mister.
traps no longer activate after
a
generator is completed. Conspicuous actions such as healing, repairing, cleansing, and unhooking builds up charge towards activating the death timer of a bear trap. Charges are indicated by 6 ticks on the survivor's portrait. 1 whole gen's worth of repairing will be worth about 6 ticks. 1 full healing action will be worth 2 ticks.
Anybody else thinking of the bug?
Totem cleanse will be
ticks?
1 tick. 1 chest will be 1 tick. 1 unhook will count as 1 tick. Every 10 seconds, there is a 10% chance of emitting a beep from the reverse bear trap. For every tick, increase the chances of...
so they're trying to give kind of like the, like Nemesis and Plague effect where, like, they're coughing, so you can track them a little bit through that. I see.
Emitting a beep from the reverse bear trap by 20%. Once all ticks are reached, the bear trap activates, giving the survivor 90 seconds to complete a jigsaw trap box. While in chase, an active trap will pause its timer. The slowdown of action speeds will not affect the overall charge of the bear trap, but rather the total progress of the action with healing and repairing. Interruptible actions like cleansing totems will only count as 1 tick if the action is completed. Jigsaw Box's auras are hidden until a survivor's reverse bear trap becomes active. When using a Jigsaw Box, the player is presented with 1 of 4 random
I like this
which
idea.
must be completed to finish the Jigsaw Box
I like
to
that it's
reset
different
the
things.
bear trap to 0. These 4 minigames consist of 4 consecutive Skull Merchant minigames, a Merciless Storm minigame, a random hard skill check minigame, a minigame where you have to keep the skill check in the white zone by holding and releasing the skill check button, causing the skill check to fall and rise.
Oh, like the breathing mechanic in games?
After the exit gates are powered, all non-active head traps will permanently disable. If a head trap is active, survivors cannot leave or their head traps will activate, killing the survivor.
WarioWare
Traps
killer.
are a frustrating element for the most part. The real underloved, neglected, and wasted potential is the pig's ambush. It's actually very fun to use, and one of my favorite abilities, just feeling-wise.
It's just not good.
Zipping around with the blade out is just straight up fun, but fun only gets you so
it's called Chucky. If you like that, play Chucky now. Chucky just has pig stash except good. So.
far. When it's so easily counterable, avoidable, it becomes a background tool rather than your main weapon. It sucks that a chase tool feels so underwhelming most of the time. You feel better off just using M1. And at that point, why are you even playing this character? That being mixed in with the incredibly slow crouch speed, while being somewhat realistic, because that would be very difficult to do, crouching like that, and moving very fast. Just like the ambush, most of the time, you're better off just running forward. You can pull off some cheeky crouch tech at the right time, but survivors who have any clue of what's going on can really make you pay for that. Worse than your knees ever will. The ability needs to be carefully touched, as being pushed way too far could cause this to be one of the strongest abilities to exist in Dead by Daylight. Oblivious into a fast dash can spin out of control very fast.
When was this? When was this released? This was released 2 days ago. You're literally describing Chucky's ability. You're describing the Heidi Hode slice and dice thing. He's literally catastrophizing something that is just now in the game as a killer's ability. Huh. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's good. Because, like, they literally released this as the killer's ability, and it's not breaking the game.
So I tried to keep that in mind. There are a few ways we could tackle on how to make this a more effective tool, but here's the way that I would like to see. Crouching gives the pig the undetectable status effect, reduces the pig's movement speed to 4.0 meters a second, up from 3.6, or 110% movement speed, the same as a running survivor.
Got here? Do you mean it went well?
Improving the dash, I created 2 forms of said dash, the ambush dash and the anticipated dash. Ambush dash. When the pig activates dash before it becomes an anticipated dash, it can be charged in 0.75 seconds, but will make no noise sound effect on being used, so no more pig roar. The duration is 2 seconds of total dash, and the speed is 6.9 meters a second. Anticipated dash. After being crouched as the pig for 3 seconds, hear a noise notification to notify you that you now have an anticipated.
Who else kind of got, like, pop scared there? Who? I was, like, looking around, I'm like, what just played? What? I feel like I had a video on pause that just, like, opened itself on accident. That was disorienting. Okay. Whew. I was like, what is happening? Are we good? Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad. That's really, really good, friend. Hope you're doing well today, Jolly. It's good to see you.
Dash. Anticipated dash activates faster in only 0.5 seconds. The dash will be a longer duration of 3.5 seconds. The dash is now at an increased speed of 7.2 meters a second. The activation of the dash will be marked with the pig's roar that it has now. And because it seems fitting and some killers should have this power, Closet Ambush. While checking a locker, the pig can choose to enter a locker, immediately removing her terror radius. While inside the locker,
I've heard
the
this
pig can
before.
see
This
through
is
the slits
interesting.
of the locker, only lightly obscuring her vision. Survivors seen through a locker are marked with Killer Instinct for 15 seconds. While in a locker, the pig can instantaneously emerge from the locker into
I like that. That's
an
fun.
anticipated
That's fun.
dash.
That's sneaky.
Add-ons, combat straps, increase the transitioning speed into crouch state by 30%. Interlocking razors. Survivors who miss the mark while performing at a jigsaw box will scream out, revealing their location. John's medical file. Increase the movement speed while crouched by 5%. Shattered syringe. Stuns and blinds taken during ambush dash are reduced by 50%. Face mask. Survivors who interact with jigsaw boxes are blind and oblivious during the interaction. Last will. Increase the movement speed during the ambush by 5%. Razor wires. Survivors who miss the mark twice at a jigsaw box become injured if healthy and inflicted with deep wounds if injured. Utility blades. Survivors hit with a dash are inflicted with mangled and
every killer's gotta have one of these.
Workshop grease reduces the cooldown duration of a missed dash attack by 25%. Increases the charge speed of dash by 25%. Bag of gears. Increase the charge gained from repairing generators by 10%. Jigsaw's annotated plan. At random moments, the jigsaw trap minigames will switch between each other. Progress needed to complete a jigsaw box is increased by 25%.
That one's neat.
Rule set number 2. Survivors with an active reverse bear trap can only see jigsaw boxes within 24 meters of themselves. Rusty attachments.
That one might be annoying.
Beeping from the reverse bear
that other one, the rule set number 2, that one might be really, really annoying.
trap will always play every 10 seconds. The beeping noise volume is increased by 100%.
Okay, for the killer, right? Like, not as the survivor, because if that shit's on my head and it's beeping really loudly, I'm gonna play this game at like 2% volume. I hope that means for the killer only, because if I have to deal with that on survivor, I'm gonna hate my life.
Slow release toxin. Survivors with active death timers are permanently exhausted. Amanda's secret. Survivors who complete a jigsaw box will project a loud noise notification and reveal their auras for 3 seconds. Crate of gears. Progress.
Okay, so like, I will say, and like, this is, throwing stones from a glass house. I understand that's kind of what I'm doing, because I don't make killer concepts. But like, if you're, one of the gripes that you have with Pig is that, pigs can have very, very obnoxious builds or playstyles that allow you to interrupt and chase you down and force a head pop. Why do we have the add-ons in your add-on design that are like, hey, somebody just actively completed a box. I need to go over there and interrupt them. What, it just kind of doesn't seem to have, like, there's some cognitive dissonance happening here between, like, hey, we don't want pigs being able to, like, cheese the head pop because that's bad, but also here's some add-ons that are going to help you introduce or like interrupt people getting all their hats off. So like, these don't seem like these go together. I don't know.
Survivors who complete a jigsaw box will project a loud noise notification and reveal their auras for 3 seconds. Crate of gears. Progress needed to complete a jigsaw box increased by 25%. Jigsaw's sketch. Survivors with active death timers will have their timer frozen at 0. Every 15 seconds, the survivor's aura will be revealed for 5 seconds. Tampered timer. Remove one tick needed to activate death timer of reverse bear traps. Amanda's letter. When in the crouch state, the auras of survivors within 16 meters are revealed to the pig. Videotape. All survivors start the trial with 5 ticks. Progress needed to complete a jigsaw box is increased by 50%. My reasoning for these changes was to give survivors a little more control when it comes to the negative effects of bear traps. No longer forced into head pops if you happen to get unlucky with how you spend your time, depending on what the pig is doing. If you don't want to activate your trap, you have it in your power to do so. Will it always be the best choice? No. but you will have the choice. It also makes it so the pig can focus more on chases, maybe setting up some fun ambushes, instead of just non-stop stressing about getting the pressure moving as soon as possible. Getting it down, pressuring boxes so they don't quickly remove it. Instead of one big burst of slowdown during the match, it would be smaller intervals, more stretched out, but overall likely more slowdown in the long run. The ambush was always a fun ability, but just needed a little bit more to become the pig's sole power, and with a mix of stealth and legitimate anti-loop, I think it achieves that, without becoming too oppressive. As much as I would want Pig to be able to move at full speed, her being oblivious whenever she wishes, and getting a massive dash after catching you off guard, would turn her from one of the worst killers into one of the best killers.
I still think this is like an interesting take, because like I said before, this is what Chucky does. I know Chucky's 110. But like, Chucky has this ability, so like I don't know, I don't get the hesitation. And this came out 2 days ago, so like, Chucky's been in PTB and people are aware of how that killer works. So it's like, I don't get the hesitation and fear on this when the killer already has that ability, you know. So I don't know.
Just remember, all these numbers are speculative. Without testing, you can't fully know if one is too weak or one is too strong. Just educated guesses. Maybe we would need more ticks, maybe the generators would have to give less charge. We can only guess, but I like the idea in practice, and with some fine-tuning, it could be a balanced power for both sides, I have no doubt. And that brings us to the end of the video. So how did you feel about these changes? Does this make Pig feel better to play? Maybe she's more frustrating. Let us know how you feel or what you think would be a better change for this character. If you enjoy what I do here, please give me a like or maybe a subscription if you want to see the channel grow and see more videos like this. But that's all I have for today. So
okay, so like with this, it's like, I feel like this wouldn't change much. Anybody else get that vibe? Is that just me? Am I being overly like sour? I don't feel like this would change much. I feel like this is a very like restrained kind of like restrained kind of like rework. I feel like it doesn't particularly change too much, and I feel like it would get her out of bottom 5, but I feel like this character would still be bottom 10, which I guess isn't the worst thing in the world, because somebody has to be the weak character, right? Like, so like there's gonna be weak characters in any game. We should ideally have most people in like low, like the lowest we should have is like low B and then like high A, if like we're looking at just like a ideal balance in a perfect world. Like, the strongest character in the game should probably be just only high A, and the weakest character in the game should only be like low B tier. That is the perfect world, but like that is very complicated and very hard to pull off, and not only Dead by Daylight, but in any game, any game's meta. But I feel like this would only put her into like raise her out of the bottom 3 or bottom 5, depending on who you ask, and putting her only into the bottom 10. So yeah, I feel like I would take this, right? Like, this is one of those things where, like, you know, I would play this over current version of Pig, but it's not a substantial enough change that I think it would make her, like, even bring her out of the bottom 10 zone of killers in the game. So, I don't know. I feel like, once again, I felt like, I feel like it's very, I didn't feel like we needed to rework hats in general. I feel like hats, besides like the scream interrupt thing and her ability to like crouch around and force somebody's head pop, is cheesy, and that's very easily adjustable. And then you go on the other end and you buff the dash and the stealth, and then she's fine, right? And then she actually is like fairly good. It's just interesting. I know I said that at the beginning, but like, it's just kind of interesting that like we like very heavily reworked the hats, when the hats themselves are not particularly in an awful or tremendously unfair state. So, I don't know, I didn't particularly think that we would go so hard on the hats. I was more interested to see like how the stealth was changing, how like the dashes were changing, and that stuff I was like, cool. But like, completely reworking the hats was a choice, just interesting, and not one that I particularly am a fan of. So, yeah, I like the dash changes and stuff, but like, I would have like left the hats mostly the same with some quality of life changes, and then made the dash and the crouch like better. So that's my take. That's what I think. Yeah, I don't know. That's just my take. That's what I think. very interested in why the hats were still bad, but what do I know? I don't make killer rework videos. I just comment on them, which is throwing stones from a glass house. So I can only say so much without, you know, like, well, what would you do? And then I'm just like, I don't know. I just have feelings, you know, which is easy to do.